Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Barely Filtered. Today, I am bringing in a guest that might be a little triggering for some of you. He's a proponent of an alcohol-free lifestyle. Now, before you switch off this podcast episode, I just want you to know that I am not currently totally alcohol-free myself. So this conversation might be a little uncomfortable. I don't know. We'll see. But James is somebody who I found a while back. He has a podcast called the Alcohol-Free Lifestyle Podcast. He's also written a book called Clear. And whether you're wanting to take a short break from alcohol, no break, but you're just curious about what a little break might look or feel like, whether or not you want to cut alcohol out completely, James has all the tools for choosing not to have alcohol as a part of your life. And evidently, he says it's painless and that you actually really enjoy the process. I don't know. I'm skeptical. Maybe you are too. Let's hear what he has to say. So right now we have James Swanwick. Did I say that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And he is the host of the Alcohol-Free Lifestyle Podcast, which he runs from Colombia. I had no idea. He just gets more and more interesting. And he is here to talk about alcohol and all the things that topic encompasses. I think as a society, we have a hard time kind of wrapping our heads around that there's more categories than just alcoholic and non-alcoholic, drinker and non-drinker, or teetotaler, as they say in teetotaler. Is that the word?
Yeah, in Britain.
In Britain, yeah. I don't know. My listeners know a lot about my journey with alcohol, and there have been long stretches of time where I haven't drank at all, and I have been consuming all of this literature about people who have gone through similar journeys. And for some reason, they're all in Great Britain. I don't know. But you're from Australia, right?
I'm from Australia, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I guess let's just back up a little bit. How did you just never drink, and or are you an alcoholic? What's your journey?
I was a socially acceptable drinker growing up in Australia, in that I had a couple of drinks most nights of the week, and on weekends I would drink heavier, and sometimes I'd get drunk. But most of the time I was just a socially acceptable drinker. I wasn't getting a DUI. I didn't wake up in a ditch. I would never have described myself as an alcoholic. I didn't get arrested. But I did that from age 16, 17, and I got to age 35 when I was living here in California. And I realized that I'd put on about 25 or 30 pounds of unwanted body fat. Mm-hmm. I was tired. I was irritable. I realized that I was envious of other people. My sleep was very poor. I was just existing, like a 5 or a 6 out of 10. So it wasn't a rock bottom moment, but it was the realization that almost 20 years of consistent drinking had caught up with me.
And I'm just thinking for the naysayers out there, how do you know that wasn't like something else that was making you feel that way? How much were you drinking at that time?
When I quit?
Yeah, when you were feeling this way, just not a 10.
Yeah, I was feeling like a 6 out of 10.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't just the alcohol, it was everything related to the alcohol. So when I was drinking, I was ordering a burger and I was having fries. I'd go out to a restaurant and I'd sit down and I'd say to myself, I'm not going to have dessert tonight. And then I'd have a couple glasses of wine and then I would order the dessert.
Totally.
And so I was ordering additional food. I was eating more calories. I was irritable. My sleep wasn't great. I was just kind of dragging myself throughout the day. And so I really identified that if I could stop drinking alcohol, that would be the first domino which would knock over bad nutrition. And then suddenly I'd start eating well. I remember when I quit, I joined the LA fitness gym up on Hollywood Boulevard at the time, and I started working out. And I hadn't worked out in years before that. And then I started realizing that I was more open-minded and I was less irritable, and I was single at the time, and I was attracting, I would describe it as a much more higher caliber of woman into my life with a much more positive energy. Joined a charity, I ran a half marathon. I just started doing all these healthy habits, and it became so obvious to me that alcohol was that one constant for those 18 years that was preventing me from opening up to all of these other healthy habits.
Yeah, that's incredible. I've heard it described that way. My dad is we make fun of him. We call him a fake alcoholic because I've never seen him drunk in my life. But 10 years ago, he was just like, I can't drink anymore. And we were like, what do you mean? You never drink? And he's like, he would have a couple beers at night, and he was so sensitive to the way it made him feel the next morning and his sleep. But he's a kind of a neurotic, high-strung person, which is why sometimes I'm like, kind of wish he would have a drink, but he says the same thing that, once he took that step forward in making that choice for himself of cutting out the alcohol, that everything else seemed to fall into place. I usually say that I call it like the universe meets you halfway when you put that first step forward. And I have felt that way in times in my life too. Right now, I'm having a glass of wine every now and then. Do I feel like it's adding value to my life? No, probably not. Probably not. There have been long stretches of time where I haven't drank at all. There were times after my divorce where I was drinking every night and feeling like it was really hard for me to stop, to the point where I actually went to AA with some friends. And I really loved the camaraderie of AA. I loved the 12 steps. I love the 12 steps for anything that you want to cut out of your life, really. But I found it also to be so stifling and kind of dogmatic.
Yeah, I actually think AA is incredibly ineffective for most people. It's effective for 7% of people.
Wow.
There's a lot of studies on this which show that anywhere between 7 and 10%. Let's be generous and say 10% when you judge success by someone having long-term power over alcohol. Now, it's true that it's helped millions of people because it's been around 90 years. It began in 1935. But 9 times as many people it has been ineffective for long term. So it's amazing that you got so much value out of AA. And if people are going to AA, great, do it. Keep doing it if it's working. However, I would submit that most of your listeners probably don't want to go to AA, or if they've been there, they don't want to go back, or there's something about it that just doesn't quite feel right. And I have my own hypothesis as to why it's not effective as it could be. Now, again, I don't want to be bashing AA because I celebrate its mission and I celebrate who it's worked for, and keep doing it if it does. But I just think there are some new neuroscience-based modalities that can have people really empowered to choose an alcohol-free lifestyle as opposed to saying no to alcohol or being sober or saying that they're in recovery or having to stand up in front of a room and say, my name's James and I'm an alcoholic, because I would submit that most people listening are not alcoholics.
Right.
But they're drinking more than they would like to.
Right.
And that's compromising the quality of their life. And so what does someone who knows they're drinking too much, they've tried willpower, hasn't worked, they don't want to go to AA because it's not that bad. So what do they do as an alternative modality?
Well, that was kind of my dilemma, because I knew I wasn't an alcoholic. I never had lost a job. I never had a DUI. I never actually, there's a step where you have to make amends to people, and I didn't have anybody to apologize to. And I really, and everybody, all of the friends that I had made, they're like, I think a lot of people are resistant to apologize to people. And I was trying to convince them, I'm like, I'm really not resistant. I can't think of one person. I never cheated on my husband. I never had done any of that. But I think at the time I was so lost and so hurt from my divorce. And I also struggle with compulsive ADHD behavior. So just all of that mixed together, and then add a bottle of wine in my house it was a recipe for disaster. And I think the benefit I got from AA was really just that camaraderie.
Yes.
But then once I kind of, healed, I worked through my divorce and everything had the dust had settled there. I started to feel like, I don't know, I had a surgery and they wouldn't let me take any of my medicine for the surgery afterwards. And I just felt like I wasn't making my own choices. I felt like it wasn't helping me anymore. And I wonder if that's kind of what happens to most people, that it helps them during that period of time when they need friendship and community more than anything.
Yes. Well, the key word there is community, but I would submit we add a word in front of the word community, and that is a like-minded community. So if you're with a group of people who have a common goal, in this case, let's say choosing an alcohol-free lifestyle, if you're articulate, you're well-educated, you're of a similar age group, let's say you're in your late 20s, 30s, 40s, you're going to find it challenging to connect with a 19-year-old meth addict who's holding up a gas station.
100%.
Right? And so you go into an AA meeting and that's who you can find there.
Right.
And so then it becomes this little bit, I'm not sure these are my people. I'm not quite sure I connect here. And as much as we support the 19-year-old meth addict, we still can't really connect to them.
Right.
So what certainly I try to do when I'm helping people stop drinking is to connect them to a like-minded community, not a community, a like-minded community. Similar values, similar outset, health conscious, committed to growth, personal development, and put them together. And then quitting alcohol or choosing an alcohol-free lifestyle becomes quite simple. It's not always easy, but it's actually very simple.
I see the theory, and it's the kind of the same method I used when I quit nicotine, which I struggled with and I used nicotine patches, then I used the alternate, and like nothing worked better than just like, oh, I actually hate this in my life, and I'm going to go cold turkey, and then I've chosen never to have it in my life again because it makes my life worse, which is just the logical thing to do. But with alcohol, how do you keep that consistency and not feel like a year later, like, oh, I actually never really had a problem with this? You know, you forget why you quit. And that I think is because my life goes through so many different phases. It feels appropriate sometimes and not appropriate at other times.
Yeah. Well, I would have you stop saying to yourself, I shouldn't drink. I need to stop. I've got to quit. Because what we're doing in that scenario is that we're focusing on what not to do.
Right.
And they've done a lot of study of the human brain, which shows if we tell ourselves what not to do, we end up doing that very thing. For example, you're skiing down a mountain, you say to yourself, don't steer towards the trees, don't fall over, and you find yourself steering towards the trees and you fall over. Well, why? Because you just told your brain not to do that. And there's a bundle of nerves in our brain called the reticular activating system, otherwise known as the RAS. And it doesn't understand when you tell it what not to do. It only understands the thing that you're trying not to do, right? Mm-hmm. So in this scenario, instead of saying, I need to stop, I've got to be sober, I have to quit, we say, I get to drink soda water ice and a piece of lime. I'm choosing this lifestyle. Tonight, I'm going to walk up to the bar and confidently order a soda water with a splash of cranberry. Mm-hmm. Tonight, I'm going to be alcohol-free and drink delicious mocktails. I can't wait to wake up tomorrow morning feeling refreshed and hydrated because I drank soda water last night. That's a very positive, empowering message. And we're telling the RAS, the reticular activating system, what to do. And so that feels simple and easy as opposed to the scenario that you just submitted, which is, sometimes I go back. Because your mindset, I would suggest, is, don't drink, I shouldn't go back. So just focus on what you will do as opposed to what you don't want to do, and things will be much simpler, I'm sure.
Right. That's the same psychology you use with a 6-year-old too, I might add. That's what I do with my son. The more you tell them not to do something, the more they want to do it, of course. Okay. Do you have any advice for somebody who maybe is feeling pressured socially to drink, whether it's their dating or their friend group?
Yes. And I experienced this when I quit. I quit alcohol in 2010, and 2 weeks after I stopped, I went out to a bar with my friends and I told them that I wasn't drinking. And one of my friends went up to the bar to get around, came back, said, I got you a soda water. And I went to drink it and I saw that he had this kind of grin on his face.
Oh my God.
And I was suspicious. And I said, did you put vodka in this? And he said, yeah, I did. I was like, I cannot believe that my best friends are...
They're like, you don't mean it.
Yeah. They're like trying to get me to drink. I was like, wow. And then a couple of weeks later, I invited this lovely woman named Andrea out on a date. And I went to Jones Bar on Santa Monica Boulevard in West Hollywood. And I got there 15 minutes before the date started. And I said to the barman, I said, look, I'm going to order drinks, but when I order a vodka soda for me, can you just make it soda? Oh. Because I was so nervous about revealing to my date that I wasn't drinking. I was just so worried that she was going to be judging me for not drinking. So we got through the date and she didn't realize that I was only drinking soda water. But a few weeks later, we were at the Coachella Music Festival and I was there with her friends, and one of her friends said, James, I'm going to the bar. Can I get you a drink? And I said, no, thanks. I haven't drunk in a month. And Andrea, who was my date, said, yes, you have. You drank on our first date. What are you talking about? And I said, yeah, no, I wasn't. I was actually alcohol free then. And she was like, what? So you lied to me? You withheld that from me? Right. And I said, yeah,
You're
sorry.
Like, I tricked you, actually.
Yeah. And there was an energetic break in us then, and that was the end of it. The relationship didn't progress. And so in my mind at the time, I was like, wow, if I tell my friends that I'm not drinking, they're going to get me to drink. And if I withhold from friends or a date that I'm alcohol free, and then they find out, I'm going to get in trouble as well. The same kind of punishment, I guess. Right. So I get it. Like, I get that your listeners are struggling with that, here's what I would say to them now in terms of handling a social situation. It doesn't matter what you say about you not drinking. It more matters how you say it. And if you are confident and you are lighthearted about the fact that you're alcohol-free, people relax. They don't pressure you. They don't judge you. But most of us are going into these social situations thinking, my friends are going to think I'm an alcoholic. My friends are going to think I'm dull and boring. They think I'm not going to be the life of the party because we're so used to drinking. And we bring that energy. And our friends and our social group and our colleagues feel that energy. And of course, they go, oh, yeah, not drinking is dull and boring and feels like a prison. And this person is dull and boring and is depriving me of my fun.
Yeah.
Whereas if you go in there going, oh, yeah, I'm alcohol free. And yeah, I'll tell you what, I'll go shot for you tonight. You drink your Zambuca or your vodka and I'll drink this soda water, ha, ha, ha. And you make a little joke of it. Everyone can just relax. The energy that you are presenting is like you're confident, you're lighthearted, you're owning it. And then everyone can just relax and have a good time. And the big secret is that nobody really cares if you are not drinking. They just care if you're pleasant to be around.
That's true. Yeah. I feel like I've been on both sides of that spectrum, which is funny, or both sides of that coin. Like I have been the person where when somebody else isn't drinking, it almost like shines a light on my own knowledge that I probably would feel better in the morning if I weren't drinking either. And so I'm like, oh, well, and misery loves company and you want the camaraderie. You want somebody to do bad things with you if you're going to do bad things. Not that drinking is a bad thing, but, that's the way I was thinking of it. But then I've also had times where I go on it. Recently, this was actually like 6 months ago or something. I was going on a date with this guy, and he was at the restaurant, and he asked me if he could order me a drink, and I wasn't drinking then. I hadn't drank for a few months, and I told him, I'm not drinking tonight. You can order me I'll get a Red Bull because I feel like it's like the next worst thing or something. So I'm like, that's what I'll do. And he's like, that's really embarrassing that you want me to order you a mocktail. Like he was like embarrassed to order a non-alcoholic drink for me.
Wow.
And then the minute I sat down, I just knew like the vibes were just not there. Yes. It was just off. All of it was off. And cause he ran a weed dispensary too, which I didn't know about. And then not that I'm, cannabis, there's a whole other situation, but I think he thought that because I was sober that like our lifestyles would just never work together, which is quite possibly true.
Yes.
But I also find that people want you to label yourself. And at least for me, like I had no idea what to call myself. They're like, are you an alcoholic? And it's like, if you step into AA, you have to say you're an alcoholic.
Yeah.
know?
A couple things on that. The term alcoholic doesn't exist in medical literature today. The last 7 years, they stopped using that word and instead replaced it with alcohol use disorder.
It makes sense.
And so I submit that there are millions of people mistakenly believing that they are an alcoholic, describing themselves as an alcoholic, when in actual fact, they're just experiencing an alcohol use disorder, which is temporary, which is something that I submit you can change and shift with some simple mind rewiring techniques and being in a good environment and just understanding the place that alcohol has in our life and knocking it off the altar that we seem to worship by. So yeah, I think when I hear this term, I'm an alcoholic or I've experienced an alcoholism, it keeps us stuck in an identity that doesn't serve us.
Right.
And it's very rigid, isn't it? It's very rigid.
Yeah.
And so if we're walking around saying, I'm an alcoholic, well, that doesn't leave much room to shift that.
Right.
I get your frustration and not being able to label yourself, but you can just say, oh, I'm alcohol free. Oh, actually, I'm not drinking at the moment. Oh, no, I haven't drunk in a couple of years. You don't actually have to describe yourself as anything or anyone. Just on the dating thing as well, I would submit men who invite women out on a date to a bar for drinks are being lazy. Because when I went alcohol free, I started inviting women out for morning hikes, for a juice, for a walk, daytime dates. And I got so much great feedback.
You see what she really looks like too.
But it made me stand out, right? Yeah. The women actually said to me, it's like, wow, this is the first daytime date I've had in like forever.
Yeah.
Because most guys say, oh, would you like to go out for dinner? Would you like to have some drinks? And I just didn't drink. And far from them thinking that I was an alcoholic or I had a drinking problem, I actually got the feedback that they were very impressed with the fact that I was
Right.
so health conscious and that I was so different.
Right. I will say, though, when I wasn't drinking, and I've done like years off at a time, and I go out with somebody, they automatically assume that there's a version of me that was so out of control that I had to reel in. And I think starting a new relationship with somebody, they fear that you might relapse into that old version of yourself that was so horrible that you had to cut out the most precious poison in the world. You know?
I get that you would have that fear.
Right.
However, if you just bring that same lightheartedness to them like you did to me just now,
Yeah.
then he or she, depending on your preference, can just relax.
Yeah.
Right? It's not a big deal. It's our own judgment of ourselves that we're concerned about. And
Right.
most of us bring that to social situations, whether it's a date or whether it's with our friends. We're so concerned about what people are thinking.
Right.
Whereas what about if you just said the truth, whatever the truth was? It's like, yeah, I used to drink a lot and
Yeah.
that was a different phase of my life, and now
Yeah.
I don't, and I'm loving living alcohol free, and I don't have any shame or regret about the past, if you don't, of course. And now I'm feeling really confident. It's great and it's amazing. I love this alcohol free lifestyle. The way that you say that now is just so relaxed, as opposed to, oh yeah, earlier version of me was just such a heavy drinker and I was a
Yeah.
big sweaty mess and I did all these kind of bad things.
Yeah.
Just let that go and be
Totally.
lighthearted about it.
Yeah. I think what I used to say is that, I did a list of all the pros and the cons of alcohol in my life, and I just found that they were more cons than pros, so I moved forward without it.
Yes.
And I do believe that is true. It's kind of always in the back of my mind of a place I want to get to. And I'm not going to lie, every day I wake up not hungover, which is most days, I'm grateful. You know, I feel like when you know the pain of a hangover,
Yes.
just every day without one is a good day.
Well, you're living a life of appreciation instead of expectation.
Right.
And that's beautiful. And that's been a big shift for me, because when I was drinking, I had expectations, and when they weren't met, I considered that a loss. You know, I thought I'd be here. I thought I'd be further along than this. I thought I'd have more money. I thought I'd be more successful. And then when I stopped drinking, I had that clarity, had focus. I started sleeping well. I lost some weight. I had more energy.
Right.
My mindset became much more positive. And then I started to really live a life of appreciation instead of the expectation. One of the things that I like to do, which might actually increase your gratitude in life, what I do is I do this thing called the Daily 20, which is every morning I write down 20 things that I'm grateful for.
Oh, wow.
Not 3 or 5, that's cute.
Yeah.
But 20 things.
I know. It's like I've never heard that this is like the advanced course on gratitude.
Yeah. But 20 gratitudes, 20 things that you're grateful for every day. Now, what it does is it activates that reticular activating system, the RAS. And so if you are, quote unquote, forcing yourself to think of things that you're grateful for, what ends up happening is that the remainder of the day, you walk around and you start to see more evidence of things to be grateful for.
Yeah.
And those things were always there. You just didn't notice them. But because you forced yourself to write down 20 things that you're grateful
20
for.
different things every day.
20 different things every day.
That's hard.
Now you just start to see things that are so beautiful and so amazing in your life. And your mindset increases exponentially to the point where you're just like, wow. And then you see challenges and obstacles as just like, oh, okay, I get to go around this, over this, under this, as opposed to reacting.
Right.
We get to respond instead of react. And life becomes so much easier that way.
Yeah. I do feel like when alcohol is a part of, a big part of anyone's life, it kind of, your vibe, your frequency is a little bit lower, you know, and the way I kind of always described it was a subtle dulling of like my vibrancy. And it doesn't take much alcohol to do that.
No.
And what I'm learning too, because I do things like neurofeedback and even like my continuous glucose monitor, I have all these like data tracking biohacking systems. A little bit of alcohol, everything's thrown off. It actually disrupts you more than you think it does.
Yes.
It's not subtle at all. It's like my neurofeedback, like all my data is great. Even like I could have like a horrible day. I could even like when I was smoking nicotine, like nothing ruined that chart the way alcohol did.
Yes. Just one seemingly innocent drink a day is enough to destroy white and grey matter in the brain. The headline there is one seemingly innocent drink causes some level of brain degeneration. It absolutely destroys our sleep. And most people are drinking close to bedtime.
Right.
And essentially what they're doing is that they're clocking in for a night's work at a time when the body wants to rest.
Right.
So you've just had this long day, you're ready to rest throughout the night. You now drink wine, vodka, beer, whatever it is. You're now sending your body to another day's work throughout the night. So that means that we don't spend as much time in that deep REM restorative phase of sleep. We wake up in the morning feeling tired and irritable, and then that compromises our quality of life. You're actually better off drinking for breakfast than you are anywhere close to bedtime, because at least then the body will have 16 hours to get rid of the toxins and work all of that poison out of your body,
Totally.
which will then enable you to actually sleep the way that nature intended you to sleep. But when we drink attractively packaged poison anywhere close to bedtime, we're not resting throughout the night. We're working. And that's why we show up tired, lethargic, and foggy the next day.
Yeah. The attractively packaged poison reminds me of Alcohol Lied to Me. Do you know
Yes.
Is it Craig Beck? Is that
Craig Beck,
Yeah.
yes.
I loved that. That's an audiobook. You guys it's called Alcohol Lied to Me. He's really entertaining and enthusiastic. He's British, right?
Yes.
Yeah. There's a lot of resources out there. Like, this is a movement. People are not drinking as much anymore. Why do you think that is?
I think we've got continued or increasing education now around the harmful effects of alcohol. If we go back to the 1950s, we had doctors promoting cigarettes.
Oh my God. So when you're pregnant, did you ever watch Mad Men?
Yes.
January Jones just like chain smoking.
And drinking all the time. Every
Yeah.
meeting, they're like drinking scotch and whiskey. It's insane. But yeah, all the way back then in the 50s, people were saying that smoking was good for you. Doctors were promoting cigarettes. Now, we look back at that now and go, what were we thinking? And that's the point where we're at now with alcohol. I'm confident that in 20 to 30 years, maybe sooner, we're going to look back on alcohol with the same level of disdain we currently do cigarettes, because we have increased knowledge now about the effects. There was a study out of the UK in 2022 of 35,000 middle-aged adults, which showed that white and grey matter in the brain was compromised from just one drink. The link to cancers, all kinds of cancers now, is indisputable when it comes to alcohol and its effects. Anecdotal evidence, we all just know. You referenced your vibration coming down when you drink. We know that. Our sleep, our irritability. We know that it is poison. It's attractively packaged poison.
Right.
It's culturally acceptable poison. But make no mistake, it's poison. And Generation Z have never drunk less. Like the previous generations all drank equal amounts. This new generation that's coming through, Generation Z, they are turning their back on alcohol like never before. There are so many alcohol-free companies hitting the market now. The liquor companies are terrified, so much so that they've now created 0% beers and 0% wines.
Which are great. The Heineken Zero tastes just like Heineken, but none of the wine tastes like wine.
Wine's the hardest one to try to get the taste comparable to like the full strength. But this is an interesting stat. In 2022 or 3, I'm not sure which year it was, Heineken Zero was 11% of all Heineken sales that year.
Wow.
That is extraordinary.
That really is.
So there is a massive tidal change happening now where people are waking up to the negative consequences of drinking. They're increasingly feeling more comfortable sharing that they're alcohol-free and choosing alcohol-free alternatives.
Right. And also what an incentive for the alcohol companies. I mean, I'm sure Heineken made a killing on Heineken Zero, still does.
Yes. And you see Heineken Zero advertised now in Champions League soccer stadium, on Formula One teams. A lot of celebrities are getting on board now, like Tom Holland. I will say I'm a little disappointed in some of the big name Hollywood celebrities like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and Ryan Reynolds and George Clooney, who are great in so many areas of their life. They're healthy, they're fit, they do amazing charity work. But at the same time, they're essentially peddling poison because they have their names associated with tequila companies and gin companies, etc. So, you know, I like Ryan Reynolds, I like George Clooney, I like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. At the same time, it's the height of hypocrisy that they're also peddling this poison.
Yeah. And I think they're able to get away with it right now. But I think when they look back, they're going to be probably embarrassed.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. And, but then there's lots of other Hollywood celebrities who are now coming out with alcohol-free alternatives, like Tom Holland, who's got a 0% beer. And
Zoe Deschanel, I think, has one too, right? Isn't it called Desoy? Is that hers? Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot.
Yeah. Do you feel increasingly confident sharing with people that you're mostly alcohol-free, or do you still feel a level of judgment from people?
I'm happy to share my journey, and it's been all over the place, and I'm proud to say I'm mostly alcohol-free. I also really have turned my back on that mommy wine culture that's huge, and especially like I'm a mom of 2 young kids. It's true. It's hard, and you do just want to numb yourself and, shut it all out sometimes. But I promise you, drinking alcohol makes everything worse. And I think that's the main point. It's like if things are not going well in your life, adding alcohol on top of that is going to make it worse. And that was why I think when I have crisis happening in my life, like a divorce or something that's chaotic, it's like, I know I can go one of 2 directions, so, and I really had to cut it out at that time. Now I'm kind of like cruising, and I'm not going to lie, the days when I don't drink and the weeks that the longer I go without drinking, it's like one day leads into the next day, and the days just kind of flow more seamlessly. If you add some alcohol in there, it's more work.
Yes.
You have to gauge, like, is this worth it? Is it ever worth it? I don't really know. you know?
If you're trying to be healthy and energetic and sleep well and be conscious and get into personal development and be growth minded, you've got your foot on the accelerator. But at the same time, simultaneously, if you're drinking alcohol, you've got your other foot on the brake.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
And so you're trying to go this way, but you're being held back.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm not here to tell you to go harder on the self-development and the growth and the health, although that would be great if you did. But I am telling you to ease up on the brake, which is alcohol.
And isn't that so interesting that it's like you just need to do less of something, not more of something else? It's like we'd rather, all the money that we spend on trying to undo feeling like shit the next day, whether it's going to get a lymphatic or all the detox, like detox to retox, it's this hamster wheel that makes absolutely no sense. It's so true. And if you just cut it out, even for like a month or 2, for me, like my body, that's all I have to do. And I look like even if I don't work out, it's like I look like I have been. It's all the inflammation goes away.
Yes. The greatest beauty regimen hack that I can offer is to stop drinking alcohol.
Yeah, I know.
Because when you drink alcohol, it dehydrates your body's largest organ, which is your skin.
Oh, yeah.
There was a study that was out of the UK some years ago where they showed a bunch of photos of people who were drinking and a bunch of photos of people who had not been drinking. Mm-hmm. And they asked some random people to come in and rate people's attractiveness based on the photos. And almost every single one pointed to the people who were not drinking as the more attractive of the group.
And
of
I
photos.
wonder if it had anything to do with their vibration too, like their frequency. I'm a huge believer in that.
Yes. One of the great ways to reduce stress and anxiety actually is to put your bare feet on the earth, on grass, because you connect to this thing called the Schumann resonance. And the Schumann resonance is this energetic pulse that comes through the earth. And when you have bare feet or you sit on the grass, it reduces stress and anxiety because that energetic pulse is coming through you.
Oh, so that's grounding.
Yes, that's grounding.
I thought the hippies on Instagram made that up.
No, that's a real thing. The Japanese actually refer to something similar as forest bathing. They'll go for a walk in a forest where they can't see through the forest and just connect with nature. And it's been shown to just destroy stress and anxiety.
Wow.
So, that's a great little hack.
That is a great hack.
Yeah, if you're feeling stressed, anxious, most people will turn to a bottle of attractively packaged poison because it gives them this temporary, I would submit, illusionary relief.
Right.
And that's fine in the moment for about 20 minutes. But then what ends up happening is that we end up drinking to relieve ourselves of the symptoms that the drinking is causing.
Totally.
So we get stuck in this.
I know that pattern too well.
We get stuck on this vicious cycle,
right?
Where we're just longing for 5 or 6 p.m. where we get to open a bottle of wine and drink so we can go, I can relieve myself of the stress and anxiety. But of course, we're drinking the poison Now we're compromising our sleep. We wake up irritable, tired, frustrated. We eat a sugary substance to give us a little pick-me-up.
Right.
Now we get the crash from the glucose. Now we're putting on some unwanted body weight. Now we lose a little bit of our self-confidence. We're tired, irritable, foggy, and now we're just longing for 5 or 6 p.m. again, where we can temporarily relieve ourselves of that stress and anxiety. And then that causes more stress and more anxiety, and the vicious cycle continues.
Right.
So I would just invite folks to knock alcohol off the altar where you've been worshiping, because that's what we do. And there are smiling assassins everywhere. And a smiling assassin is the waiter or the waitress who's smiling, say, can I get you a drink? Would you like a bottle of wine?
Right.
You might sit down raw and they say, oh, can I get you a glass of a poor night's sleep?
Right.
Would you like a bottle of shame and regret in the morning?
Yeah. No, it's so true. I think for me, it's the first 2 weeks where you cut it out, and then after that, it's easy. The first 2 weeks of trying to break any habit, if you're kind of that habitual drinker, which I kind of had romanticized having a glass of wine when I make dinner. I make dinner every night though, and having a glass of wine every night really does make a huge negative impact on my life. So I had to cut out that habit, and it really wasn't hard to do. And what I realized is, when I found myself in AA and in that group, I was struggling with anxiety, depression, compulsive thinking, and a lot of to do with my ADHD. I wasn't sleeping because I was so stressed about my divorce. I was pretty much postpartum still with my daughter. So there was a lot of mental things going on there. And alcohol was just the only thing I knew that would shut off my brain for a bit. I think when I heard all these other people going up and speaking, I realized that I was that woman has other issues. Alcohol is the solution that these people are trying to use to feel better. But I think a lot of times there's a lot more going on than just their use of alcohol, right?
Yes. Well, alcohol is a numbing agent. Mm-hmm. And so we use it to relieve ourselves of the pain of being ourselves. Maybe we're going through a divorce. Maybe we're not happy with our career. Maybe we've got kids who are not as present with us as we would hope that they would be. Maybe there's something going on. And so we use alcohol then to numb ourselves from that pain. But of course, then that perpetuates the pain,
right,
and we get stuck in that vicious cycle. There's a chapter in my book which is called Clear, and the title of it is The Uncomfortable Reality of Your New Clarity.
Oh.
And so when people stop drinking alcohol, yes, they feel much better because they're sleeping better and they've got more energy. However, it also exposes challenges and problems in their life that they've been kicking the can down the road for many years, that they've been procrastinating on. So we can sit here and we can say an alcohol-free life is far superior, and it is. But often when people stop for the first time, or at least for an extended period of time, it reveals things that are going on in their life. That clarity could mean I shouldn't be in this marriage anymore.
Right.
This job isn't serving me. I've chosen the wrong profession. I need to make a shift here. And that can be very uncomfortable for people because it represents change. And change is incredibly challenging.
Right. Totally. Yes. I think that's why they say in the first year of AA, or the first year of sobriety, you probably shouldn't date, or you probably shouldn't. Do you feel that way too? These kind of rules about the first year of being sober?
No, I mean, I'm not really in alignment with much of AA's methodology. Like I said, I love their mission and I love the impact they've made in people's lives. But again, I think that is keeping us rigid and putting us in a box and having us being stuck in a formula.
Right.
And then if we break free from the formula even once, now all of a sudden we've got shame and regret and we're beating ourselves up. So again, it also depends on what's the extent of someone's drinking. If someone is drinking and getting and blacking out and getting DUIs and waking up in a ditch, my advice for them would be different than someone who's drinking too much and that's causing marital strain, but it's not so severe. But I think as soon as you give up drinking alcohol, as soon as you start making healthy choices, if you're growth-minded, if you do personal development, if you do some therapy, if you start eating well, you don't even have to choose to go and date. Those people will find you. You will attract that energy.
That is true. That really is true. And it's you're scared to make a change, but then everything kind of works out more smoothly anyway. So I think if you're questioning, do I have a problem with alcohol, or is it impacting my life negatively, then you could just give it a try. Like, do a month. How do you get people to start who are just very hesitant and have a lot of questions?
Yeah. So the safest way for most people is to do a 30-day challenge. Now, I both like and dislike those 30-day challenges. Mm-hmm. I'll tell you what. Sober October, Dry January, they're great in theory. If you go into it being open to the idea that you'll go at least 30 days without alcohol. Not 30 days where you're going to feel like a prison and you're going to be white-knuckling it.
Yeah.
And then on day 30, you go and celebrate with a drink.
Right.
Because I would submit, what was the point of doing that 30-day challenge in the first place?
Right.
And the challenge with doing Dry January and Sober October is that when you're doing it and you're white-knuckling it, you feel like you're in a prison. And what do most prisoners want to do? They want to break out of prison.
Right. And do more bad things.
So now you're unconsciously associating not drinking with pain.
Right.
And drinking with pleasure and relief.
Right.
Whereas I submit it's the other way around.
Mm-hmm.
The drinking is the pain, and the not drinking and being alcohol-free is the pleasure, is the reward, is the gift. I hear a lot of people say, oh, I deserve a drink. I'm like, you deserve a drink.
Yeah.
You deserve to have a bad night's sleep and irritability and frustration and drink poison.
Right.
That's the reward. How about living alcohol-free being the reward and the joy and the clarity and having the high vibration and the great energy and attracting amazing people into your life? That's the reward. That's the joy. So for folks who are thinking about this, if you go into one of these 30-day challenges, great. I salute you and I acknowledge you. But I would invite you to be open-minded to the idea of at least 30 days. And I'm going to go into these 30 days choosing to be alcohol-free, not saying no to alcohol and being sober and practicing sobriety, but choosing health, wealth, love, happiness, being conscious and being open to the idea of this could be a lifestyle that I choose, not over 30 days, but over many months, years, and decades. Because I've had a life with alcohol and a life without, and without is so much better in every way.
You don't think it's a little daunting for people to consider removing something that they currently find so precious for a decade or more? So do you believe in one day at a time?
Yes. Okay. If that gets you into motion, then yes, do that. But don't look at it as one tough day at a time.
Right.
Look at it as I'm choosing this great day at a time.
Right.
I'm choosing health. I'm choosing love. I'm choosing appreciation, not expectation. Most people go into these things going, oh, it's so hard. I've got to stop. I need to stop. Just don't drink today. Don't drink today. And of course, we're focusing on what not to do, and it becomes hard.
Yeah.
The flipperoonie is what I call it. The flipperoonie in mindset is go into this going, I get to be alcohol-free.
Right.
I get to drink alcohol-free alternatives.
Right.
I get to share with my date tonight that I don't drink. I get to have a great night's sleep. And if you do that each day, day by day, then that will turn into weeks, months, years, and decades.
Right. And I would also say make a list of the good things that start happening in your life. Because sometimes it's hard to connect the dots when you're living the day-to-day. But if you look back, if I look back at the times where I went long stretches without drinking, it was the time when I had the most momentum in my career. And when things kind of start to show up for you that seemingly come out of nowhere. So
you become a magnet for good things in your
Right.
life. When you choose to be alcohol-free, not sober.
Right.
Because sober and sobriety and being in recovery and being clean and all that kind of stuff, that's still keeping you stuck in an identity that's quite negative, and you're lamenting the past, and there's a lot of shame and heaviness around it.
Right.
But over here, if you're choosing to be alcohol-free and you're loving it and you've got energy and clarity and focus, you become a magnet for other people who are on a similar vibration. And then you start to attract people who either also don't drink, or drinking is not necessary for romance or connection or for bonding.
Right.
It's a very minor part of their life. Let's, just as an exercise, let's list out 3 of the great things that happened to you when you went alcohol-free consistently.
I mean, one of the great things was like my body was out of control. I had the 6-pack and I wasn't doing anything else other than not drinking. That was nice. I felt really energized. And actually, one of the things that I was super proud of that I didn't realize was I actually I was the life of the party. I could still dance on tables at 3 a.m. purely on Red Bull, which is probably bad for you in a different way. It definitely is. And then wake up in the morning and like make everybody breakfast, you know? And what I learned also was that I could go a full night with no sleep and feel better the next day than like crappy sleep on alcohol. So there's that for sure. I also think that I did stop drinking towards the end of my marriage. And I think that was what gave me the confidence to be able to make the choice for me, like that this wasn't really a situation I needed to be in or I should be in anymore. We kind of bonded on alcohol. Like, I think I actually chose him probably under the influence of alcohol. I mean, that's what we did. We drank together. We went to bars. It was a party relationship. And I think I probably chose, if I was sober during those years, I for sure wouldn't have married him, you know? Am I going to say it was a total mistake? No, I have my 2 kids and, you know, life brings you in all sorts of ways. These were lessons I had to learn. But, yeah, I definitely wasn't like sleeping with any people that I didn't want to sleep with. I wasn't marrying anybody I shouldn't be marrying. That was nice. And also just to learn too that you can build intimate connections with people not under the influence.
Yes.
I think so I think all of that to say, like, self-confidence, a little bit more self-esteem, self-confidence that I'm pretty good on my own and I don't need it. Yes.
It sounds like you had that uncomfortable clarity of your new reality, which was when you were alcohol free, you realized that maybe the relationship wasn't serving you, or that you got into the relationship in the first place under not false pretenses, but you were clouded.
Definitely.
You know, alcohol was present. It wasn't the only reason, but it was present, and maybe that clouded your judgment in hindsight. So I really acknowledge you for being self-aware to identify that, because most people are unaware. Most people aren't conscious. They're just drinking, numbing the pain, kicking the can down the road, and not facing those tough choices that need to be made. And I get that stopping drinking feels like you're running through rose bushes and you're getting thorns in you and you're getting all bloodied. But when you come out the other side of those rose bushes and you've got the blood and you've got the thorns and you're pulling it out, life is just so much more beautiful.
Yeah.
And the clarity, even if it's uncomfortable in the moment, it turns into just an incredible way of life. And it seems like that's happened for you, right? Like,
it has. It really has. It's at this point, it's not really something. I think where I'm at now is that it's almost like more inconvenient to say no sometimes than I won't have more than one drink. Like, I went out the other night with a bunch of girlfriends. I had an Aperol Spritz because I was like, it felt like a kind of less alcoholic than some other drink. So I'll try to like pick something that is not the worst. I'm not taking shots anymore, and I'm not drinking at home anymore. Like, I don't buy it for my house. It's kind of a gradual thing that I'm weaning out of my life, but it's not something that I feel compulsive towards anymore. And I do know that that my life runs more smoothly if I don't have it in it.
Yeah, so. Amazing. May I ask why you still chose to have a drink? And by the way, there's no judgment here. If people are watching or listening, even if you reduce alcohol, even if you just identify the place that it has in your life and that helps you make some healthy choices, I'm all for that. Right. And I salute you and acknowledge you for that. But I'm curious, like, you went out with your girlfriends and you still ordered a drink. Mm-hmm. Did you order it because you liked the taste of that drink, or did you order it because you wanted to fit in and be part of the tribe?
No, I like the taste of it. I mean, I've listened to so many books on, I listen to books on Audible for the most part, where they're like, you know, you think you like the taste of it, but like it's an acquired taste of poison. You don't actually like the taste. Maybe that's true. I feel like I like the taste of Aperol Spritz. And I also know that I have romanticized like a drink with a certain type of food, and that connection for me feels, it gives me a dopamine hit. And so that's why I choose it, you know?
Yes. When we drink, our dopamine receptors light up like the 4th of July.
Right.
And then when we drink excessively or consistently over many years, it actually softens the dopamine receptors. And so now we feel like we need to drink more just to get the same high that we got from a smaller amount of alcohol previously.
That I have experienced. And I think that's when things got a little bit scary for me where I was like, oh no, am I having 2 glasses of wine at night now? And I still wanted more, it was like, then I was like, okay, I need to take a look at this. And I think from somebody with ADHD perspective, like having a dopamine deficiency, there's some interesting stats on like people with ADHD and their propensity towards alcohol because, we're just looking for that dopamine boost. So right now I'm on Wellbutrin, which helps to boost up my dopamine a little bit. And it helped me to kick the nicotine. And I think it's probably also helping me to not feel like I need to seek dopamine in other places. So for me, that's worked. I don't know like if it would work for everybody, but there's a lot of like, there's so much science now and there's so many alternatives. And I think just like being open with your doctor is so important. Nobody's honest on those things about like how many drinks you're having, And I think most of the time they just say to you like, oh, you're drinking too much, but there aren't really a lot of there's nothing really helpful that a doctor has told me about alcohol, my use with alcohol or
Yeah, I like holistic ways of trying to get dopamine release. And dopamine is fired off when we have pleasure, when we experience short-term pleasure. What I like to do is to really look at my life as feeling fulfilled. And fulfillment is very different to pleasure. Pleasure is like the 4th of July fireworks and it's temporary, but then there's a lull, there's a crash. Fulfillment is consistently over days, weeks, months, years, decades, sleeping well, getting morning sunlight, writing down what you're grateful for, having a like-minded community, being growth-minded.
Cold plunge? Do you cold plunge?
Cold plunge is a great way.
I always make fun of cold plunge because they're like, it makes your whole day better. I'm like, yeah, because nothing could be worse for your whole day than that cold plunge that you just did. So it's only uphill from here. I like cold plunge too, though. Yeah, there are definitely natural ways to get dopamine. I'm not saying run to a pill. For me, I needed to get off that nicotine, and it really helped me. So I'm grateful for the Wellbutrin. But ideally, I would like to wean off of, and acupuncture has helped me a lot. Yeah, and cold plunge and exercise. I mean, exercise for me is the number one thing that has helped me with all of these issues. It's such a great way to get dopamine, endorphins, and
yes. If I miss a morning workout, I feel it for the rest of the day. I'm just a little less excited about life.
Right.
I'm kind of dragging myself a bit. And, there are many mornings I wake up and I don't want to go to the gym.
Yeah.
But I go to the gym and I do it. And not once did I ever say, oh, gee, I wish I didn't go to the gym. I wish I didn't work out this morning, because it becomes this dopamine release, right? This euphoria of having accomplished something and pushed your body, and then your body relaxing and recuperating and recovering from that. That's what creates fulfillment. That's what creates its own level of dopamine. And that is so much healthier for you than drinking attractively packaged poison.
Ain't it the truth? Ain't it the truth? You said some things I didn't want to hear today, James. But I'm happy you came, and I know everything happened for a reason. This is the universe winking at me like, okay, it's time. Enough with the bullshit. So I just want to make sure my listeners know where they can find you, and tell us about your book and where we can listen to your podcast.
Thank you. Before I do that, I just wanted to acknowledge you and say you are actually a pioneer, because most people will not even attempt what you have accomplished, which is to go consistently alcohol-free.
Thank you.
So great job with that.
Thanks.
I have an organization called Alcohol Free Lifestyle, and we help people to stop drinking, essentially, and rewire their mindset around alcohol. And you can find that at alcoholfreelifestyle.com. My book, Clear, is a neuroscience-based approach to finally break free from alcohol without AA, without willpower, or without rehab. And you can find that at alcoholfreelifestyle.com/clear. And then I'm on Instagram, where I do a lot of stop drinking videos, etc. And it's just my name, @James Swanwick.
Amazing. Wow. Well, thank you so much. And thank you for all of your research and hard work. And it's a really exciting time to be alive right now. We're learning so much, and people it seems like, maybe people are starting to prioritize their health a little bit more than numbing their bodies. So
yes,
we might be living till we're 130 now. Who knows?
Living well to 130.
Yes, that's true. Nobody wants to be like senile for the last 30 years. Anyway, thank you so much. And thank you for listening to Barely Filtered.